We're looking at today, that's going to be this crazy hybrid thing, right? So it's a Shadow Systems DR920P with a Glock 17 Gen 3 slide. That just straight front just looks awesome, right? So we're going to get into the who, what, where, when, and why, how, all that kind of stuff. Stay tuned. What makes this an interesting build? Well, it's not supposed to happen. You know, for educational and entertainment purposes only, not advocating doing any of this to anyone, not recommending it, of course, for anybody. This will allow you to mix that Glock reliability, which a lot of it comes from the slide, with some new modern kit. If you pick up one of these frames, it might cost you a lot less than, say, an equivalent Glock frame. I don't know, we can't buy those here where I'm at. Might this appeal to? So, more of the Glock traditionalists, and of course you're saying, wait, how would a Shadow Systems slide appeal to a Glock traditionalist? Well, you're adding Glock parts to it. Any aftermarket builders, right? So this is a point of potential curiosity for folks who may want to make stuff for this, and shooters that may want that Glock style block, as you would call it, with modern features down here on the bottom. Like I said, without having to potentially spend a ton. You know, if you send your Glock frame off to get this done to it, it's probably going to cost you more than it would to just pick up one of these frames. So if you're here, you probably know about Shadow Systems, but they came around right when the Glock Gen 3 patents ran out, and this frame is not exactly a Gen 3. So it covers a lot of different territory, and you need to do a few things to be able to get this on here. We'll be covering that in a bit. What are some of the really good details about this? Well, you can see them just by looking at them, right? And this has been safety checked, nothing in there. So some of the good things are the texture. Obviously, you get some nice grippy texture. You get a very deep undercut, and it's double cut. What's really weird is they didn't put any texture here, but they did put some on the front. That's a story for another video. You get the 4 and 5 mag release, and of course you get interchangeable backstraps. Comes with a Magwell straight away. You can pull this off, of course, at your will. And it has these little textured thumb ledges, which, you know, the texture is nice, but it would have been nice to have more of an actual ledge there versus just some texture and a cutout. But hey, again, for another video. The cool part about this is you can pick up Gen 3 slides right now for pretty reasonable prices. It's a simple and very proven design from the Gen 3 slide perspective. You get the compatibility of all of the aftermarket parts. Not like the Shadow Systems wouldn't give you that, but like I said, it covers a couple of generations with this particular build, and we would call this, what would we call this? A DR17? I forget to mention it. I did actually mention the back straps, but the back straps are a really big feature for this, and I think they did a really good job. This one's kind of more of the flat one. They have one that's got a little bit of a palm swell, and then they have one that has a big old palm swell. I really like the flat one because it points really nice, right? It points a little bit more with your pointer finger versus pointing with your thumbs like the traditional Glock grip angle. So that's a big upgraded feature. If you don't like the Gen 3 finger grooves, obviously this doesn't have them. All right, we're going to take a break and go hit some range footage. You'll see that I actually had an optic on here. I was trying out a dovetail mounted optic, and I didn't put it back on here because, of course, it looked kind of absurd and ridiculous, but it also kept loosening up. But again, another video for another day. Let's go check out that range footage. Everybody, I've noticed that about 80+% of people that watch the channel regularly are not subscribed. So if you like this type of content, two-way content, and you want to support me in any way you can, an easy way to do that is hit that subscribe button now and make sure you turn on those notifications. All right, back to the video. All right, so what did you think of the range footage? It was boring and reliable, right? I only shot about 100 rounds out of this though because I got so frustrated with the optic. So the good part about the optic was when I retightened it, the dovetail mount optic was still zeroed. So that part was good. But the fact that the dovetail mount kept on loosening up was really frustrating. So I stopped shooting this, you know, a lot sooner than I would have normally. But As I said, it was reliable. The recoil impulse felt very much like a Glock 17, maybe a little bit stiffer, and I think that might be because the plastic, polymer, whatever you want to call this, is a little bit more rigid than the Glock polymer, which I think has a little bit more flex, and I think maybe absorbs a little bit of recoil, but you know, that's if you want to get really nitpicky. It's not dramatically different. Now, as far as the slide to frame fit, it's got a little bit of wobble in there, and that's, I think, kind of inherent to the Shadow Systems design, because their slide on here also has that bit of wobble, which is, you know, to be expected, because like Glocks and Shadow Systems are both made with a little bit of looser tolerances. That way they can work in those crazy environments, cold and getting mud in there and all that crap, right? Pros, I think it looks super cool. That nice, just flat front end. And of course, this is an aftermarket barrel. So if you use a regular Glock 17 barrel from Gen 5, it won't look like this because it'll be poking out here in the front. This one was from AIM Surplus. The other pros, obviously, the ergonomics are still going to fit into that Glock kind of wheelhouse, right? So, and a lot of parts are compatible, so that part is nice as well. Improved grip ergonomics. Obviously, your mileage may vary depending on which backstrap you like. It's going to retain that proven reliability of the Gen 3 slide, right? Otherwise, if everything else down here, this will also give you a wide variety of holster choice. And of course, you got the cool little beaver tail right here. Of course, the Gen 6 comes with that now. I've never really had a slide bite problem from a Glock perspective, but a lot of people out there claim that they have, and this will help with that. So some considerations. Tolerance stacking obviously might become a problem for some users. This may not be fully compatible straight away. I didn't have to make any modifications to anything to make this fit. And again, reminder for YouTube, this is for instructional, information, and entertainment purposes only. I don't recommend anybody do this for any reason. Closing thoughts. So does it outperform a Glock 17? No, right? It's just cool and different. So if you have extra parts laying around, you know, this would be something cool to slap together and just go have some fun with at the range. Like I said, it was reliable completely, but I only shot about 100 rounds out of it today, so that's not a very good comparison of reliability. But I have no reason to believe it would do anything otherwise. Worth it for somebody who already has complete iterations of both of these things? Probably not, but again, your mileage may vary. I'm not the one that is the ultimate decider of what you do with your stuff, with your money, all that kind of thing. All right, last but not least, I know you want to know how this gets done, because the Shadow Systems is essentially like a Gen 5 Glock 17 frame. But this is a Gen 3 slide. So how did it work? So let's get into it. Obviously, I can't show this to you on camera because YouTube and all that. So you have seen this show up in a couple of videos if you watch my channel. It's a little doodad. I don't sell these. You can get them on eBay, but it's an adapter to be able to use on the Glock 17, a recoil spring assembly from a Glock 19. And then, of course, you'll need a Gen 5 Glock 17 barrel, because they have the shorter lugs here, and I mean shorter this way. Otherwise, this setup will not work as I have it set up. You could probably do other things to get there, but this is a very, very easy way, and there's only that one piece that is not OEM that you have to get, which is that little adapter. You can use an OEM Gen 5 Glock barrel if you wanted to. Anyway, that's how it's done. I did it because it's fun, right? I love tinkering, obviously. You know that if you watch the channel. So if you like, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure to comment down below, guys. Is this cool? Does it suck? Is it the stupidest thing you ever saw? Let me know. We'll talk later. Thank you.